If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Granger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Granger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Thank you. I think it's so worth the effort, and it's worth noting, I think, that the results, they're compounding. So a small amount of effort, 1% greater effort today, 1% greater effort tomorrow, it compounds over time, and you get muscle memory. The same way your muscles build and your physique improves, so too will your acts of gratitude and your personal relationship with gratefulness, and your overall happiness will change too. Your demeanor will change. How you show up for other people will gradually shift, and you'll create an upward spiral because you have these compounding results. It's why what you advocate, practicing gratitude every day, is one of the, I think, the most important things we can do to control our personal quality of life, no matter what circumstances are going on.
Stay connected to gratitude. Hit the follow button right now and join thousands of listeners tuning in each week. We're the Gratitude Seekers. Come join us. Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Our guest today is a personal development coach and educator with over 25 years of experience helping individuals and couples connect, communicate, and thrive. With a master's degree in education and a background as a Microsoft systems engineer, Nick blends practical tools with data-driven frameworks to guide clients through life's challenges, including career shifts, financial pressures, and personal growth. Nick Brancato, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful for your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your presence and your enthusiasm, and I'm really looking forward to a really meaningful and beautiful conversation. So, aside from the short intro that I just went through, what would you say about yourself that our listeners should know?
Well, one of the things that your listeners should know is that I also taught for the World Poker Tour, teaching high stakes decision making under pressure and mindset management. And I think that relationships are high stakes decisions, the most high stakes decisions that people can make.
Mm, I love that. I love that, and I would like to start with this. So, high stakes decisions. Why do you believe that this happens in relationships?
Well, in relationships, they affect every aspect of your life. They affect your mental, they affect your physical, they affect your health in every way. There are great studies that show the higher the quality of your relationships, the greater the quality of your life and the longer your life expectancy. And so the biggest decisions that you make that affect the most areas of your life are your close relationships, especially your primary one.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's funny in relation to gratitude. One of the most the things that people talk about most when it comes to gratitude is the people in their life, their relationships, and uh, also in contrast to that, they are also the most challenging. And like you mentioned, the highest stakes are in these kinds of relationships because they are so close, they are so intimate, they are so um, they impact us so much. So, how do we make these high stakes decisions?
That's a great question. For me, I think it starts with your priorities. And so the things that are the most important to you, that you spend the most time on in your day to day life on an ongoing basis, those are your highest priorities. And those are the things I think that we're also most grateful for. The things that we spend the most of our resources on, our time, our energy, our money.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, um, of course, when we have some priorities, we tend to value those much more than other parts in our life. And my question is actually related to, for instance, in you mentioned high pressure also. So in many situations in our life, we have to make decisions when we are very busy, and we need to also take into consideration family matters, for instance. And how do we deal with that? How do we manage these kinds of situations?
Well, it can be challenging to juggle multiple priorities. In fact, priorities is actually it's a relatively new word for humans. It's only about 100 years old. Before that, there was just the word priority, which meant the one
Mm.
most important thing. And so it's actually a modern problem that we're juggling so many things at once. And I think you have to know yourself first before you can really know anyone else. And I've identified 10 core life priorities, which I think are also the areas where gratitude can be expressed in its greatest form. And so, examples of these priorities where you would uh, rank them to take into account what's most valuable to you are like career, communication, entertainment, finances, growth, health, relationships, safety, sex and intimacy, and spirituality. And I think by taking a step back and looking at ourselves and taking a moment, a few minutes to rank each of these priorities 1 through 10, you'll also be ranking and considering the things that you're most grateful for. Which areas of your life bring you the most gratitude? What areas of your life are you looking to improve? What areas of your life can you spend more time on? What can you spend less time on because maybe it's not serving you, maybe it's detrimental? So, if you look at where you're spending the most time and what your satisfaction is and how much effort you're putting forth, I think you're really going to get a good handle on what kinds of decisions you need to be making. And it's only in identifying your key decisions in life that you can go about making the right ones, taking your priorities into account, which is really taking, I think, gratitude into account.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And by the way, what does gratitude mean for you personally?
Oh, wow. Gratitude means so much to me. In some ways, it's one of the most important things because if I don't appreciate what I have and if I'm not grateful for the things that are going to come to me, it's very hard to have a good perspective on life. It's very hard to share openly with other people. It's very hard to be honest and genuine and form real connections because being grateful for the things in our day to day life, being grateful, especially for our relationships and the generosity that people show me every day, like the generosity that you show with your podcast and our conversation and being present is something that I'm grateful for right now. And I think that gratitude, it's almost a skill that you need to develop. It's a muscle that you need to flex.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's not that easy to create muscle, right? Like when you think about working out, you need to stretch a bit. You need to make an effort so that you get to that point where you're actually building the muscle. And I love the fact that you mentioned this, and I'm sure that people listening that have worked out know that uh, it takes a bit of a stretch. It takes a bit of effort to be able to build muscle. So even though it's not easy, it's worth it, and the way you feel afterwards, it's actually worth the effort that you put into it. And this is what I wanted to uh, clarify in what you just said.
Thank you. I think it's so worth the effort, and it's worth noting, I think, that the results, they're compounding. So a small amount of effort, 1% greater effort today, 1% greater effort tomorrow, it compounds over time, and you get muscle memory. The same way your muscles build and your physique improves, so too will your acts of gratitude and your personal relationship with gratefulness, and your overall happiness will change too. Your demeanor will change. How you show up for other people will gradually shift, and you'll create an upward spiral because you have these compounding results. It's why what you advocate, practicing gratitude every day, is one of the, I think, the most important things we can do to control our personal quality of life, no matter what circumstances are going on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really helpful in relationships as well. Like being able to have this attitude makes it easier to see the good things in the other person.
It really does. I was
And
wondering if I can ask you a question.
definitely.
Yes. So I was wondering in your what is the biggest change that you've made in your day-to-day life that helps you not just feel grateful and practice gratitude to yourself, but to actually reflect that gratitude to your closest relationships?
So can you repeat the question so that I can answer
Sure, absolutely.
exactly, precisely?
Absolutely. My question is, what changes can I make in my day-to-day life to better reflect gratitude to my close relationships around me?
Hmm. Yeah. So the biggest thing and the thing that I recommend people, especially when it comes to holidays, uh, is to before meeting a person, whether the person is in the other room or meeting them for coffee or anything else for lunch, thinking about three things that you appreciate about them. And when we do this, the interesting thing that happens is that we tend to see those qualities. The other person tends to reflect those qualities back to us. And yeah, it's a really wonderful exercise that I usually recommend during the holidays because when we get to meet our relatives, it's not always easy. They we don't always think about their qualities, and it really makes a difference to do this.
Wow, I love that. Taking a moment before your each encounter and communication. I think even if I do that over a phone call or text, setting my intentions for the interaction by thinking of three things that I like about the other person, that I find valuable, that I love, will really put the proper frame for a positive interaction. That's profoundly impactful. I think that's a wonderful tip.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically turning what we tend to do upside down. Like uh, when we think, for instance, like I mentioned with the holidays, when we think, oh, I must interact with that person, and I don't like the fact that they do this, and they do this. Um, Basically, we're turning that around, and we're thinking about the good things that the qualities that they have, the good things that they might say, or the good things that they have as traits. And yeah, it makes a really big difference, because we're not going there in that interaction like uh, guarding ourselves from a potential conflict or from a potential uh, uncomfortable situation. We're actually seeing that person in a new light, and yeah, that's really beautiful to do.
That is beautiful. You're setting yourself up for success instead of priming yourself for failure. When you think about the negative before the interaction, you're
Yeah,
really
exactly.
focused on all the wrong things instead of focused on all the right things. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love it too. It's a really great exercise that, yeah, it's very useful during the holidays, but it can be useful, like you mentioned, in all kinds of really small interactions, like a phone call or a text or anything. So yeah, I love the fact that you made it even more applicable in even more situations.
I'm going to be spreading this one around a lot.
Feel free to do so.
Thank you.
So, I also wanted to get to something else, and it somehow relates to what we just talked about. Um, Gratitude is great and all, but it's not always easy. What do you do when it's hard to be grateful?
That's a terrific question. When I struggle with gratitude, when it's hard to be grateful, or when I work with anyone who's in a negative place, it's particularly challenging to be grateful and to find gratitude. I think one of the biggest tips I would recommend people to doing is the biggest tips I would recommend someone doing is using predetermined decisions to help facilitate gratitude when it's not easy, when it's not difficult. So if you always try to force yourself to come up with things that you're grateful for, whether it's in your life or it's about another person before an interaction like we just discussed, if you try to do it just right then and only give yourself a few seconds, it's going to be hard to come up with things when you're in a negative mental space. So, what I like to do is write down things that I'm grateful for as sort of part of a daily ritual. So in the morning when I have a hot beverage, I like to list some things that I'm grateful for, and I encourage others to do it just for a minute or two at some point throughout your day, not in real time. So you're doing a predetermined gratitude. That way you can think about it in real time. So if you know you're going to have an interaction with some family members in the next coming weeks, or the next coming days, you can think about each family member and think about what is positive about them, what's valuable, and have these predetermined things written down. Maybe they can be in your phone, and you can look at them and remember what you are grateful for. And that memory, it's also like a muscle. It's like working out. It's a muscle memory. So the feelings are going to come back to you. The emotions are going to come back to you, not all the way, but in some form. And it's going to prime your system for feeling that gratitude in real life when the actual interaction takes place. I think consistency is the key to practicing gratitude.
Yeah, to keep that parallel between working out and gratitude, I think uh, whenever, for instance, we prepare ourselves for a marathon or for something like this, uh, we train each day, and we train each day so that when the situation comes that we need to run that marathon, we're ready for it. And yeah, I think it's similar with gratitude. If we do it every day, when we need to do it and it's harder to do, we have that muscle that's built, and yeah, it makes it so much easier to be able to apply the gratitude when things aren't that easy.
Yes, exactly. And I think the using predetermined decisions and a little planning. You don't want to go into the gym and try to work out and figure out your workout every single time you're there. Like, what exercises am I going to do? You want to know
Mhm.
beforehand. You want to at least have a framework to work within. So, when practicing gratitude, I would also try to apply a framework of what's important to me. What do I value in life? What do I value in other people? And so you can have sort of some go-to questions almost, or prompts that help you identify the areas that you already feel grateful. And that's why I think priorities are so important to assess in yourself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And right now, I was thinking about what you just said about priorities. So, in theory, we know, for instance, gratitude is important. But in practice, many times we find it hard to make it a priority. Why do you think that is?
Terrific question. Gratitude is one of those things that often sadly falls to the wayside. It's almost out of sight, out of mind, where
Mhm.
if you're not aware of it because you're not flexing that muscle at all, if you're never doing those exercises regularly, then you can forget about how many things there truly is to be grateful about, because gratitude applies to every aspect of your life. And it I think it relates to living in the moment and being present and appreciating your current circumstances no matter what they are, because there's good and bad in every situation, as you know. And developing your intentions, I think, is critical, and comparing them to your priorities. So if gratitude is a priority for you, or you want to make it an increased priority, then one of the things you have to look at is, what are you deprioritizing instead? So, like, how do you spend your time throughout the day? Do you spend it on entertainment? How much time are you spending consuming content? Can you take a little of that time that you might spend on entertainment and set aside 2 minutes, 5 minutes to another priority that will help other areas of your life, like gratitude? Taking that time to actually write down the things you're grateful for, or say them out loud into a voice recording, or even if you're just alone in a room, say them to the mirror. You have to make a decision to make gratitude a priority. And the reason I would advocate everyone making that decision, is because it will improve every other area of your life, no matter what you're working on, whether it's physical fitness or your career or your family life. Focusing on the positive and the things that you're grateful for, as you know, and as you preach more than anyone, and it's so wonderful that you do, it will change your life gradually and more rapidly than you think.
Yeah, beautifully said. I love it. So, I also wanted to get to something that you're very good at, um, and it's related to the closest relationships that we have, and it's usually with the person that we choose as our partner. So, what are some things that we can um, start applying right away to realign our priorities so that we will enjoy more gratitude together?
Excellent question. What we can do to realign our priorities and improve our connection is simply taking a moment and listing your top three priorities. Do this as an exercise individually. So, say, what are my top three priorities today? What do I want to focus on the most? What's most important to me? And your priorities, they change over time. So, you want to ask yourself, what's important now and in the near future. You write those 3 things down and you ask your partner to do the same separately. And then you exchange lists. You share with each other what your top 3 priorities are. And the thing to remember here is not that they have to be the same, although there will be some overlap, of course, and we like to be aligned with our partners, but it's okay if there's differences, because what we want to do is adopt a learning stance. We want to get curious and we want to ask the question, why? Why is this important to you? Why is this one of your top priorities? What we're looking for is we're looking to gain the context of this person's life, what's going to impact their decisions day to day. And also, we're really asking the question, what are you most grateful for? And what are you most looking forward to? Because when we ask about priorities, it envelops all those things. And we want to be judgment free. We want to be as empathetic as possible. We want to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, and we want to learn and truly try to understand why these priorities are important. No judgment, just understanding.
So, how would that look? Like, give us an example so that it will be easier for us to apply this in our day-to-day life.
Absolutely. So the way it looks is, for example, a couple that I've recently been working with just started focusing on their priorities and being more aligned. And so what they do is they have a little ritual where they take a walk. And it's not a long walk. It's not even a half-hour walk. It's a 10-minute walk that they take every morning, and they do it right after they wake up and get together. And on this walk, they discuss what their top 3 priorities are for the day. And so it's very simple. It only takes a few minutes. One of the things I do with my wife is we have a hot beverage ritual every morning. Whoever wakes up first makes the hot beverages, and then we just take 5 or 10 minutes. It's usually about 10 minutes. And we have a rule, 2 rules: no screens and no conversations about other people as far as what's going on with their lives. So it's about us and our life together and our life as individuals. And we're trying to, this is a phenomenal opportunity to connect and really get to know what's making someone tick. So we look at what are our top 3 priorities for the day, and we compose them separately. It only takes a few seconds. And your top 3 priorities could be as simple as, I have to do this errand, or as complicated as, I need to change careers and I'm looking for what my next option is. So you want to also look at what decisions you have to make through the day, because your priorities are going to impact your decisions, and your decisions are going to reflect your priorities. So if you're struggling listing your priorities, you can also ask yourself, what decisions do I have to make today, and share that with your partner. It could be a decision as easy as, what am I going to have for lunch? Or as complicated as, how are we going to handle talking to our child about this crisis? So, and everything in between. But it's taking that time to just pause for 5 minutes and say, what's important to me, and what can I share with you about that thing that's important?
Yeah, what I love about this is, firstly, of course, the connection time. That's really valuable. And also, I think many of us just suppose that they know the priorities of the other person. And I think this is why this is valuable, actually, because instead of supposing, guessing that we know, we actually find out, and it's much easier to manage everything if we communicate and we're transparent about this. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
This is a brilliant point that you mentioned, because so often we think that we know what other people are doing, and especially why they're doing it. Not only do we think we know what they're doing, we think we understand their motives. Whether we do or not, we tend to create these narratives in our mind, these stories about what's going on and why, sort of regardless of how much information we actually have. Humans are kind of like story making machines. We do this unconsciously to fill in gaps in knowledge. And so if we don't know what's important, we're going to make assumptions, and that's going to lead to bad decisions because we're taking the wrong factors into account in our decision making process. And so what's so wonderful about checking in and sharing your gratitudes or your decisions or your priorities with your partner and with your loved ones is that it gives context for the actions that you take throughout the day. It lets your loved ones know what's going on and why. So if you know what my priorities are, then the things that I'm doing throughout the day are going to make sense to you, and you're not going to take them personally. For example, one of the most common things that I see in relationships and with couples especially is one partner might feel neglected because the other partner is spending their time and resources on something else. And that's usually because there's an unspoken priority and something that's very important that hasn't been fully discussed and communicated.
Mm, that makes so much sense. And yeah, definitely, if you look at it from both sides, uh, both people want connection, both people want to take care of each other, and without this kind of communication, um, there basically uh, there's basically a disconnect happening. And like you mentioned, it can be such an easy way of doing this, of making sure that you communicate the priorities and that you know the other person's priorities as well and understand their context. I love this.
Excellent. Yes, communication is certainly the key to connection.
Yeah, definitely. And for our listeners, we talked about um, prior, priorities and the couple relationships that we have in our lives. Um, because what I didn't mention in the beginning is that Nick is the author of Prioritize Us, Unlocking Lasting Love with One Simple Proven Test. And yeah, tell us a little bit about the book, aside from the things that we talked about.
My pleasure. So the book is um, a quick test that you can take. Basically, it gives you 10 core life priorities and asks you to rank them 1 through 10. So you might rank spirituality as number 1, career as number 3. And so you rank each of these 10 priorities 1 through 10, 10 being the most important. 1 being the most important, 10 being the least important. And then you have your partner do the same thing. You do them separately, and then what you do is you compare the results. And so we see what's important to me and what's important to you, and most critically, what the difference is. So what we're going to get is we're going to get the total difference score, which is simply how many points apart one priority is from another partner's priority. So if I rank safety as number 2 and you rank safety as number 5, the difference is 3. So we could have a difference of 0, which means we have the same priority ranking, or it can be as high as 9, which means they're completely different priorities. And so when we compare these, we get a total difference score, or a TDS, and that reflects how aligned you and your partner are. It's a score between 0 and 50, 50 being the least aligned and 0 being perfectly aligned. Perfect alignment is very rare. It's like 1 in a trillion. It doesn't really happen. And I think that shows how important it is to do an exercise like this and have some communication. The book is really a guiding resource for anyone to determine their priorities and then set and follow intentions with the worksheets and the conversational prompts in the book. The way I think of it is it's like a relationship credit score. Most people don't know how to measure the strength of their relationship beyond sort of very vague emotions. And what Prioritize Us does is it gives you the TDS, which is the total difference score. And that's basically your relationship's credit score. It instantly tells you how aligned you are, what's working, what needs improvement. And the lower the score, the better your long term outlook. And the way I think of it is like, would you make a major financial decision without checking your credit score? Most people never would. They would always want to know what's going on. Would you make a major financial decision without knowing how much is in your bank account? No way. So why would you make a commitment to a potentially lifelong relationship without knowing more information, without knowing your total difference score, your TDS?
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a great way of uh, being able to measure the level of connection that there is, and also, I believe, work on those on balancing those priorities, right? Because I think it's not just seeing a score and like a grade in school,
Hmm.
but also being able to improve it in the areas that can be improved, of course.
Absolutely. The beautiful thing about taking a little test like Prioritize Us is that it will show you the areas where you're least aligned. And that's sort of the low hanging fruit for easy conversational topics, for easy communication points. So if we're very off in our priorities and we're afraid that conflict might occur, one of the things that I would encourage is that people start by talking about their strengths. So where are we most aligned? Uh, do we share the same priority for relationships? Do we share the same priority for spirituality? Are we both career driven? What's the pillar of our relationship? Where are we most aligned? Where are these pillars? Let's focus on that. It's just like you suggest with thinking about three things that are positive that you're grateful for another person before having an interaction with them. I love that. And this is the same thing. What we're doing is we're finding what pillars exist in our relationship. What are our strengths? Let's identify those and then work on the areas where we're less aligned.
Mm. Excellent. I think is the best approach when we find those things that are working, and also based on that we get to work on the things that aren't working that great. So yeah, I absolutely love this idea, and I think it's is the best approach. So we're nearing the end of our time together, and I wanted to ask you, where can our audience get your book, and also where can they get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. So I have, if this conversation resonated with you and you want to get deeper support applying these principles, I actually have a couple spots available open for private coaching to help individuals and couples uncover their core priorities, confront misalignment, and build stronger relationships. And if that sounds like something that would benefit you, you could send me a DM on Instagram at personal dev coach, like development, personal DEV coach, personal dev coach on Instagram, or you can visit nickbrancato.com. And if you go to nickbrancato.com, you can actually get Prioritize Us as an ebook absolutely free. You can download it and you can start working with it right away. And if you'd like a hard copy of the book, you can go on Amazon and get Prioritize Us in paperback or hardcover. And I'd love to hear from you. If you want to contact me on my website, nickbrancato.com, or DM me any questions or thoughts you have about priorities or about gratitude, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to talk with you. This is my passion. So I really appreciate podcasts like this, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on as a guest.
Definitely my pleasure. It's been really amazing having you on, talking about this beautiful topic and yeah, feeling your enthusiasm and your passion. I really see that and appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Gratitude Seeker, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this interview. I really appreciate it. And if you could think of one person that would also benefit from it, share it with them. It might actually be the inspiration that they need to make their day or maybe even their life much better. Thank you so much once again. This has been Georgian Benta. Don't forget to keep seeking and spreading gratitude.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.